You're listening to Sheridanlife Radio.
Good afternoon, Sheridan College. It is now time for Smacking Down Some Learning. I am here with...
I'm Tanishq.
Yeah. So, today we are talking about here at Smacking Down Some Learning, we love science, right? And we like real-life science, but we also like fictional science.
Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, yes, we do. Especially fictional science by Andy Weir, the author who is very well known for his, very grounded and down-to-earth, down-to-earth in big quotes here, depictions of science and technology in his books, and which become movies. And that means we, today, are talking about Project Hail Mary.
Hell yes, we are.
It is so good. Just to start off with. Okay,
Beautiful.
First of all, major spoiler warning. If you are listening to this broadcast and you have not seen Project Hail Mary, if you have not read the book that the movie is based on, major spoiler warning. As soon as I start talking about the science in this book, it is going to be a spoiler. So if you want to go into the movie completely blind, which is something that I actually highly recommend, honestly, I think the ideal way to experience it might be actually watching the movie first and then reading the book.
Yes.
If you are interested in spoilers at all, you can listen to this later, all right? Don't worry about it. We're recording. It's fine.
And yes, and if you do choose to go blind, watch it on 70mm IMAX if you can.
I still need to watch it in IMAX. I'm so excited.
Yeah, because the way you watch a movie, the screen, it completely changes the experience. And a movie like this was made for an IMAX.
I gotta see it that way. Okay, so, spoiler warning. Everyone who hasn't seen it has probably left. If they haven't seen it and they're still here, good luck to you. We will not be held liable for any diminished experience of the movie. But it's still super good, and you should see it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, they're all gone.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, there is a lot of different science in this book. I'd say the main aspects are, 1, relativity, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't really understand it. Mm-hmm. I know the basics of the closer you get to the speed of light, the less time you experience, yada yada. This is a space movie, by the way. No, wait, everyone's already seen it that's listening to this. So
yeah.
we're just going to get right into it.
Yeah.
And there is speculative xenobiology, which means it's thinking about what kind of biology would there be for aliens. Because there's an alien in this. There's 3 aliens in this movie. There's the Astrophage, the Eridians, and the Talmiba.
Yeah, and for those who haven't read the book and seen the movie, if you're still listening to this, the aliens, the Astrophage, it's a single-celled alien. It's a single-celled alien that feeds off the energy from stars, right? Mm-hmm. And the other alien is the predator. It has a scientific term for it. Yeah. And it's the only thing out there that can kill the Astrophage. So in the movie, Ryan Gosling, his main goal, the man himself, his main goal is to find a way to stop the Astrophage from consuming our sun and causing a global winter.
And the way they do this is that they've seen that a bunch of star systems around them have also been infected with this invasive species of astrophage because they see their energy outputs dimming all across the different solar systems, except for one, Tau Ceti, which is not dimming even though it's in the middle of all of the infected stars. So they decide to send a mission called the Hail Mary in order to find out why Tau Ceti isn't dimming and if they can bring that solution back to Earth.
Now you might be wondering, how do you send a rocket to interstellar space?
I mean, here's the problem, right? Is that, Andy Weir, he grounds his science, in technology that we kind of have right now and could theoretically do with just a couple of, not leaps, but hops, skips, and jumps in different, little sci-fi ways. So the problem we have to think about here is the fuel. We simply do not have a fuel source efficient enough to get to a star system that's multiple light years away in such a comparatively short amount of time.
But we do, though.
But we do.
We do. We have astrophage.
Yeah.
Astrophage, it isn't just the single cells that are killing the sun. It's also the fuel for this interstellar ship, because the goat himself, Ryan Gosling, figures out how they breed. How do they breed, though?
I can't believe they sent Ryan Gosling into space for this. Anyway, so Astrophage is actually really interesting. They do not get that far into it in the movie, of course, because, limited runtime. They do explain a little bit of it, but the biology of Astrophage is really interesting. And so Andy Weir, really great story idea is that a lot of the sci-fi elements of the story are grounded in this one thing, and that is astrophage. And they have a very efficient method of energy storage. So here's what happens. An astrophage has the capability to travel up to 8 light years in space in a complete vacuum.
Interesting.
So what they do, and you would need to be extremely energy efficient for that kind of thing, for such a small microscopic organism. So what they do is that they land on the surface of a star. They absorb the energy from that star. They are very, very resistant to heat and X-rays and anything that could penetrate them. They are at a constant temperature of 96.5 degrees Celsius, 96.12, something like that.
Yeah.
And so they take in all of the energy from that star, and in their little bodies, they somehow have figured out how to excite neutrinos and collide them to turn them into matter. So they directly convert energy into matter. And it's so efficient that they store this matter within themselves, and then they convert it back into energy to shoot it out and use the light, which comes out at a very specific wavelength of infrared light, to move them through the vacuum of space.
And it's really interesting because these astrophage microorganisms, they basically act like a superorganism. You know what I mean? They act like this unified organism, and they travel together from the sun in this line, and they call it the Petrova line.
They have
And
a very
in the
specific
movie-
migratory pattern.
In the movie, the Petrova line is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Watching that on an IMAX screen, I went in the blind, right? And the transition from the planet Eridian to the Astrophage Petrova line was truly it reminds me of why I go to the movies, right?
It's
This
so
is the reason I
beautiful.
go to the movies, is to look at scenes like this.
They use an infrared camera for that, because obviously a human being can't see the infrared light that the astrophage produces, but an infrared camera can.
Exactly. And speaking about infrared cameras, we're going to go a little off topics, but it's still science though. The way this film was filmed, all of the astrophage, it's practical effects, right? Beautifully done practical effects. There is VFX as well, but this is a practically affected.
No green screen.
No green screen. Yeah, it's practical. It's heavy in the practical effects, and the way they do the astrophage scene is they have these little tiny bulbs, right? And these bulbs are
Infrared.
Infrared, exactly. That was the word I was looking for. They're infrared bulbs that we cannot see through the naked eye, right? But though the cameras that they use to film this, they have an infrared filter. And if you take away the infrared filter, the camera can see the lights that's being emitted from these infrared bulbs, right? So it's just brilliant practical filmmaking, which I feel is much needed today. And it just brings me so much hope as a filmmaker that there are people out there who are making such brilliant films, right? One of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen, one of the most beautiful transitions I've ever seen was all practical effects. And that's just mind-blowing.
It's such a beautiful representation of the migratory path of a microorganism that is extremely dangerous. Because the problem with astrophage is that it multiplies exponentially, right? So it goes to the surface of the sun. It excites the neutrinos in its body. It collides the neutrinos, turns it into mass. Now you have enriched astrophage that has the ability to travel through space by converting its mass into energy and shooting it out the back. As Ryland Grace, aka Ryan Gosling, so aptly put it, they toot to scoot. So
Poop the scoop.
exactly. So then they travel off the sun to find a source of carbon dioxide. So they have if they recognize a certain wavelength of light that is associated with carbon dioxide, they will head right to it because that's what they use to breed. What they will do is they will find a source of carbon dioxide. In this case, in our solar system, the planet Venus. They move in between Venus and our star, Sol. And when they get to Venus, they make it to a certain point in the atmosphere and they use all that energy and they split. So now there's 2 astrophage on Venus, and both of them don't have a lot of energy. So they go back to the sun. And so now there's 2 astrophage, and they take a little bit more energy from the sun. And then they go back to Venus, and then there's 4 astrophage.
Yeah,
and
so
then they go back to and exponential growth. Hey, where's all the energy in the sun going? Wait, we need that.
Yeah, it's just this giant feeding line of micro organisms, single cell aliens just feeding off the sun and then breeding.
And nothing to keep them in check.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Oh wait, but there is though.
But there is that. We'll get to that. So essentially, astrophage is an invasive species, an interstellar invasive species. And so, in the story, they send a probe to collect astrophage from the Protova line. That's how they find out what it is. They bring it back. Our protagonist gets kidnapped by the most awesome woman in the world, Ava Stratt. I gotta tell you about Ava Stratt right after this because she is
not a fan.
She is so amazing in the book. No, I think she did nothing wrong. I'm a big Ava Stratt apologist. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, her singing was great though.
She is great. So when they get the probe, they bring it back, they find out what astrophage is doing, what their life cycle is, and so Ryland Grace figures out how to breed them. They're like, great, we need 2 million kilograms of that because it turns out this is a really efficient fuel source and we're going to use it to go to Tau Ceti and figure out what's up. But when they're studying astrophage, because she sends it to scientists all over the world, right? There are a couple of interesting things. The quantum physicists figure out the neutrinos thing. Biologists figure out there's DNA in an astrophage. And not only is there DNA, there's mitochondria in an astrophage. And so that is very specific. Because here's the problem. We have that on Earth.
It's the powerhouse of the cell.
Exactly. DNA, mitochondria. And mitochondria is weird because mitochondria actually started out as a completely different single-celled organism from the original single-celled organism. But then one organism absorbed mitochondria and was like, hey man, listen, you don't need to survive on your own anymore. You just need to pay the rent by creating energy, being the powerhouse of the cell, as it were. And you just get to stick around here forever. And so 2 organisms become one organism with an organelle inside of it as the mitochondria. And that gave rise to how we process energy now, which is pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's just hitching a ride. But it's insane to think that would happen on 2 completely different planets unless it's not convergent evolution, as it were. It's not 2 different ways of evolution, 2 different things happening in the exact same way on completely different planets, just coincidentally. It's much more likely that it's divergent evolution, as in the astrophage and life on Earth have a common ancestor, which isn't that much of a leap when you think about astrophage is still a water-based life form, even though they live on the surface of the sun because they are kept at a constant temperature.
Yeah.
And B, astrophage can travel for light years. There is a chance that some microorganisms could also travel for light years and infect other star systems. Like Earth.
Yeah.
Or Erid. What's Erid? Oh boy!
Oh boy. What's Erid? What's Erid? Tell me about Erid.
So essentially, you start off with the astrophage and you're like, wow, a single-celled alien life form. That's so cool. Too bad it's only single-celled though, don't you worry. There's more, because Ryland Grace, when he's in the Tau Ceti system, meets the single best character in this entire movie. Rocky!
2, oh wait.
Oh, sorry.
3, 2, 1, Rocky!
I love that guy. I love him so much. The puppeteers did a great job. Anyway.
Exactly, puppeteers, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little sidetrack. Going to go back into my filmmaking mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rocky isn't just a single puppet. It was actually multiple puppets that were made for multiple different shooting scenarios, right?
Yeah, there's an animatronic, isn't there?
Yeah, and the arm, Rocky's arm with the 3 little fingers, it's an animatronic arm that can actually lift things.
That's so cool.
And what's really interesting is to really bring out like Rocky's character, they had to make consistency with all these different puppets. And there were some scenes where it was CGI Rocky. So they had Rocky with all these motion tracking sensors on the puppet, and the VFX company that did the VFX, they used it as a skeletal reference to make CGI Rocky, right?
That is really cool.
The transition from practical Rocky to CGI Rocky and these multiple puppets, another reason why you should watch the movie.
Yeah. And from a character design and animation perspective, shout out to the character designers and the animators and the sculptors and everyone for being able to make something that looks like a spider really cute.
Spiders are cute. Jumping spiders are cute. Have you seen jumping spiders?
That's true. Jumping spiders are cute up close.
Yeah.
But sometimes the movement of a spider really freaks me out. But Rocky is a completely different story. We love Rocky.
Rocky's an awesome spider.
Yeah.
He's a space spider.
So their theory in the book, actually, when they're talking to each other, just like, oh, like, how do you think, life came to be on our 2 very different planets? Rocky's like, well, maybe we're family. Maybe we both came from the same common ancestor. Probably. Ooh. Astrophage. Or, well, the ancestor of Astrophage. Which is really interesting. And it's such a great way to kind of explain, like, how are all 3 of these alien organisms connected? They're all water-based. They all have DNA and mitochondria and that sort of thing. So, they end up very different through divergent evolution, but they all have these same base properties, which make it make sense for them to have a common ancestor. And it's really interesting. What else? What other science in the book do they leave out in the movie? A little bit of Eridian biology.
Oh yes. So Rocky uses echolocation. Right? Rocky's like a bat. He's a space bat, spider, rock. He's pretty cool. That's how they communicate, right? And so how does Ryan Gosling speak to Rocky?
Well, they can both hear the same sound frequencies, right? Yes. And that's actually an interesting point that they do bring up in the book of just like, how come do you think we can hear the same sounds? And Rocky's like, well, I can hear, much higher pitch sounds and much lower pitch sounds than you. And Grace is like, yeah, but we both hear the same middle range. Why do you think that is? And Rocky says, well, you hear that, right? That's the sound of prey, skittering on rocks. That's the sound of footsteps. That's the sound of a predator sneaking up on you. So it would make sense that both of our species evolved to hear that sound range because the sound of object on object is very important in terms of evolution.
Exactly.
And Rocky, his species never evolved sight on Erid because their atmosphere is so thick that sunlight never reaches the surface. And they also never evolved any protection for radiation because A, their atmosphere is so thick that it's very difficult for radiation to reach the surface. B, their Erid's magnetic field is extremely strong. So their gravity is about a little under twice that of Earth's, and their magnetic field is, again, very strong, so that also prevents radiation from reaching the surface. So they never had to evolve any kind of protections from that, which means that most of Rocky's crew died of radiation on the way there. All of his crew, actually, which is very sad. And pat poor Rocky on the head.
Yeah. But speaking about that, it's really interesting to see how much detail you get when you read the book. So, did you know the actual cut for the movie was 3 hours long?
I want to see that. I want to see it so bad.
I want to see it so bad.
I bet there's one thing that they were really sad that they had to remove, and that was nuking Antarctica.
Nuking Antarctica?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you. Okay, so basically, Ava Strat, right, in the movie, she's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm part of the Petrova task force, you know? I'm part of this. You know, I'm one of the people involved. In the book, she runs Earth.
She runs Earth? She's the ruler
everything.
of Earth?
She essentially gets a free pass from the United Nations that just says, I can do what I want.
Damn.
And she uses that power solely to solve the Astrophage problem. She confides in Grace. She's like, I will do whatever it takes, and then when this is over, I will go to prison.
Oh, wait, why would she go to prison? Wait.
Because she...
For nuking Antarctica?
Yeah, she would... Well, that's part of it. First of all, she's like, well, hey, climate scientist Leclerc, so you know all that global warming we've been doing for the past, you know, couple decades and that kind of thing? And he's like, yeah, you know, it's really horrible. And with this upcoming cooling of the Earth, the biosphere and that kind of thing is just going to be so bad. And she's like, well, seems like we're pretty good at global warming. And the sun is cooling, and that's not very good for us. So we need to delay that as soon as possible. We need to release as much greenhouse gas as we possibly can. And he's like, but that would be so bad. And she's like, it would be worse if we didn't. And so then jump cut to them standing on a ship outside of Antarctica. And the poor environmental scientist has to press the button. And essentially the reason that they nuke Antarctica is to release a bunch of methane that's trapped in the gas in the permafrost underneath the ice. And methane is a very effective greenhouse gas that decays quite quickly in the grand scheme of things. So they essentially, you know, try to get as much greenhouse gas into the atmosphere as possible.
And what ends up happening? Do they actually nuke it?
They nuke it.
They nuke it.
They nuke Antarctica. They set off a nuclear bomb in Antarctica.
And I'm assuming that didn't help.
It helped. You know, you release greenhouse gas into the atmosphere, it's going to stave off the cooling of the Earth, right? Because it's going to trap heat more. Obviously, Antarctica, it's still going to be a major blow to all of the world's ecosystems. Never mind the fact that they paved the Sahara Desert. Because, so she gets...
Huh?
She releases a man from New Zealand prison.
Damn.
Like Supermax prison.
Obviously, it's from New Zealand. Yeah.
She just waltzes on in there, and she's like, hey, I saw your technology for solar panels. How much of a scale can you do that? Because we need to enrich 2 million kilograms of astrophage. Because on Earth, you know, it's kind of hard to get to the temperatures required to energize that much astrophage. He's like, I think I could do it. She's like, great, I'm going to employ you to pave the Sahara Desert. And then she just walks out of the Supermax prison. And she's like, this guy's mine now. And they're just like, well, she can do what she wants. So
she does mention in the movie that she has scientists working from all over the world. And you actually get to see that in the book, which is pretty cool.
It is really cool. I really love the message of like worldwide collaboration that Andy Weir has in his stories. I think it's really cool.
I feel for issues like this, it would just make sense to have a worldwide collaboration. It wouldn't make sense to just rely purely on Ryan Gosling to save the world. But
it's a really great message of hope, I think, that, you know, is very good to have these days of just like, I think if it really came down to it, we would all work together, and not only with other humans, but with other aliens. I think that's beautiful.
What are your thoughts on Ryan Gosling choosing to live with the aliens and not move back to Earth? Like, that was a choice that he had to make, right?
Yeah, essentially. It's the same thing in the book, right? Yeah. And in fact, in the book, at the end of the movie, Rocky says, hey, we finally repaired the Hail Mary, you can return to Earth now.
Yeah.
In the book, he never says that.
He never says that?
So it's kind of ambiguous if the Hail Mary is ever repaired. In the book, instead, he tells Grace that Sol, our son, has returned to full luminance. So it gives him confirmation that A, there are still humans on planet Earth, and B, they were able to solve the astrophage problem.
Okay. So he probably felt like his work is done and he didn't have to go back to Earth. And honestly,
you know, apparently a sequel is not out of the question. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing the 3 edit. It's something. I feel like the choice of having Ryan Gosling stay with the aliens at the end, it's symbolic to change. You know, it's Ryan Gosling was never meant to come out of this alive. When he was sent, they made it very clear to him that it was pretty much a suicide mission. So the fact that Ryan met Rocky, it's kind of like not only did Ryan help Rocky by saving his planet, Rocky kind of helped him as well by giving him a new life.
And then he became a school teacher,
Yeah.
again, which is beautiful. And in the book, and in the movie, they don't really show it, but in the book, obviously, there's a little bit more emphasis on the effects on his body that, moving to Arid, what kind of thing happened. Because basically, he didn't have enough food to make that trip.
Yes.
So what he did was he can't eat Eridian food because Eridian food is full of heavy metals like thallium, which are very toxic to humans.
Okay.
So good for Eridians, bad for humans. So what he ended up doing was eating the quote-unquote coma slurry that the astronauts were fed throughout their 4-year-long coma through their trip, and eating Talmiba, which is essentially empty calories, but it kept him alive, right? And then finally they got to Arid. Eridian scientists were able to synthesize food for him. They didn't include it in the movie, which, fair enough. I don't think you would want to go perhaps this risque, but they end up synthesizing meat out of his own body, so he gets to eat burgers. But he calls it a me burger, but it's just auto cannibalism. But like, it feeds him,
Well, good to know.
Yeah, and also, he has arthritis very early because he's living in gravity that is much stronger than that of Earth's.
How detailed is this book?
It's very detailed.
Man, I had no idea.
I can tell you the composition of Rocky's atmosphere, 29 Earth atmospheres of ammonia. Kept at like 200 degrees Celsius or something. It's very, very hot. Actually, in the movie, Rocky, he breaks through his enclosure to get at Grace, right? That would have killed Grace if it were accurate to the book, because that's 29 atmospheric pressures of ammonia. That's like 29 times Earth's pressure of ammonia, which will give you chemical burns, especially at that temperature. So in the book, he uses the airlock, and then Grace actually gets burned, putting him back into his environment. But yeah, it would have just exploded if he had actually punctured the xenon in the book. And they're actually steam-powered Eridians. They have 2 circulatory systems, a hot system and a cold system. And so they heat up and cool down their blood, which causes their muscles to move, which is really cool.
Oh, like a thermostat.
Yeah.
It's a living thermostat.
Yeah, they're so cool.
It's a thermostat spider.
Almost, that's kind of horrifying if you were to think about that on Earth. But on Earth, it's cute.
It's pretty cute. Did you know you can get your own 3D printed Rocky if you went to the official website of Project Hail Mary?
My dad has a 3D printer at home. I might have to take advantage of that, see what I can do.
Yeah.
I think that'd be super fun. What else? What other science is in there? Oh yeah, in the movie, the centrifuge is not balanced. You might have heard about that.
The centrifuge.
He uses a centrifuge to, just separate out some astrophage goop.
Yes.
And he just puts 2 in the side of the centrifuge. When I was watching that in the movie, I was just like, is that something about that looks a little bit off to me, but I don't work in labs or anything, so I didn't really recognize it. But then I look later online, it's just like, the centrifuge isn't balanced. It should be on 2 opposite sides, which makes sense. Because centrifuges, if they wobble, that could damage the equipment. Also, when he throws up into a traffic cone on the aircraft carrier?
Yes.
I was waiting for it to come out the other end of the traffic cone, because they have a hole in the top.
I was really wishing it wouldn't come out.
Yeah,
I'm so happy it didn't come out.
Yeah, I was hoping it would. I was like, it's just gonna come out the other side, but it never did. I was like, wow, this is so inaccurate.
That would have been unneeded, it would have caused unneeded trauma to a lot of people if it came out of the cone. Not gonna lie.
I mean, we're already putting a traffic cone on an aircraft carrier, which apparently is not something that is done. So, might as well make it an irregular traffic cone.
He has to puke into something,
Yeah, poor guy, honestly. What else? Oh, my dad said he's looking for the Rocky 3D model to 3D print it.
Wait, really?
Yes!
Yes, let's go.
Oh,
That's
my goodness.
awesome. Can you get me one as well?
Oh, dude, we'd have to, mail it, but...
Oh, okay,
We'll
okay,
see,
that
we'll
makes
see.
sense.
There's gotta be a 3D printer somewhere on campus.
Gotta be.
There's gotta be. Yeah, but we'll make an army. What else in the book that didn't happen in the movie? Oh, they really glossed over the process of breeding Talmiba, because the whole like Talmiba dies in nitrogen, that was definitely a lot bigger of a problem that they needed a lot more time to solve. Because what essentially happened, they took the Talmiba in the atmosphere, they put it into a replication of Venus's atmosphere, and it just died instantly. And they didn't know what happened, because Venus's atmosphere is like 98% or like 97% carbon dioxide and like 3% nitrogen. And the nitrogen was really, really toxic to the Talmiba. And so initially he was like, oh gosh, how do I fix this? How do I modify the Talmiba? And then he realizes he doesn't need to figure out why Talmiba dies to nitrogen. He just needs to breed enough Talmiba with slowly changing environmental parameters to make it resistant to nitrogen. So he just needs to do selective breeding and let evolution and natural selection take care of the rest. And it's a really ingenious solution in the book, and they kind of gloss over it in the movie, but it's still kind of the same method. And so they breed up the Talmiba in different stages, all the way up to 3% nitrogen, and then they breed it all the way up to 8% nitrogen, which is the atmospheric composition of the planet in Rocky's solar system that was hosting the Astrophage. And so essentially, that way, when they release the Talmiba into the atmosphere of Venus, into the atmosphere of Rocky's, neighboring planet, that way, they'll just kind of survive and feed off the Astrophage and multiply like heck until the population is in check, which is kind of how you check populations of out-of-control species on Earth.
Awesome.
So he just let evolution take care of the rest. However, there was a problem with that.
Oh, what's the problem?
Because here's the thing. When you let evolution take care of something, it's gonna do stuff that you don't expect. So yes, the Talmiba also became resistant to nitrogen.
Oh, it also began to mutate.
It mutated in directions that they weren't expecting. So it did become resistant to nitrogen, but it started evolving other ways to get away from the nitrogen, aka burrowing through the material that they used to contain the Talmiba.
And consuming the fuel of the craft.
Exactly. So Rocky had this material called xenonite. It's very strong, very versatile. They used it for a lot of things, including the chambers that housed the Talmiba for breeding. So as the generations went on, Talmiba slowly learned to get in between the molecules of xenonite in order to escape the toxic nitrogen, and managed to worm its way and just like, oh, hey guys, there's some astrophage over here. And so it escaped and started eating their fuel. And so, it became a Chekhov's gun of like, oh, Talmiba can escape xenonite. And so here's the interesting thing. How the heck would an organism be able to find its way through the molecules? And I think there's a very interesting analogy about this in the book. Where he kind of explains how it's done, where at that very small scale, things get a little weird. So xenonite is still airtight, right? Because essentially air is a bunch of very fast-moving molecules. If you were to set up a tennis ball dispenser at one end of a very dense jungle, and if you were to just shoot that tennis ball dispenser at a high speed through that jungle, none of the tennis balls would reach the other side. Because, they're always going to hit on something in that dense jungle thicket.
There's always going to be obstructions over there, stopping it from going to the other side.
Exactly, yeah. And so tennis balls are quite small. Now, if you were to get a human being with a machete, much bigger than a tennis ball, it would be able to reach the other side because it can change direction and weave in and out of the trees and all the different blockages of that jungle, and it would be able to reach the other side just fine, even though it's much bigger than those tennis balls.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the principle is being used here of the Talmiba is much bigger than any, tiny little air molecule is trying to get through the xenonite, but the Talmiba can maneuver in and around the xenonite, so it's able to get through when regular air isn't.
You know what? You get a thumbs down for that explanation.
Yeah,
thumbs down. Let's go.
Movie references. I'm not going to be able to stop myself from just saying like amaze.
Amaze.
Everything science related.
It's really interesting to see the level of depth that this movie has.
And the book has even more depth. It's so good.
It's crazy. It's crazy. As as filmmakers, like a lot of people, they use books as inspirations to make their films, right? But the fact that the book is this dense, there's so much information in this book. I'm just imagining what it was like for the writers to curate what to actually show in the film and what to take out. And I guess that's why we have a 3-hour cut. Because I was thinking to myself, like, why have a 3-hour cut? I mean, I would love a 3-hour cut, but what more is there to say? And then I'm having the conversation with you, and they go into everything from his arthritis to
There's so much
the
more.
biology of Rocky. It's crazy. It's crazy how much research goes into a book like this. 'Cause
Yeah.
it kind of, like,
There's a
as a writer
scientific
for a
reason
story
for
for this, like, how do you write a story that's this scientifically accurate? Like,
Lot of research. And Andy Weir tends to like open himself up to input from, scientists in the community and that kind of thing. And, he'll often get feedback from just like, oh, this is inaccurate, this will change this. When he originally wrote The Martian, which was his original best-selling book, have you seen or read The Martian?
no, I haven't. Does it have a movie?
Have you seen the movie where Matt Damon is stranded on Mars?
I have seen clips of it, and
That's
they
The
look
Martian.
beautiful.
It's a beautiful movie. It's really good. And the book that movie was based on was also written by Andy Weir. When he originally wrote The Martian, it was actually a serial on his website. So it would publish chapter by chapter, and so he would often get input from people reading on his website, just like, oh, this is scientifically inaccurate, you need to change this, you need to change this. And so that book is actually a lot more like chemistry and physics and engineering based, as opposed to biology. So I did do an episode on The Martian, but I couldn't talk as much about the chemistry and the physics because that's not really my area of not expertise, but interest, so to speak.
I have a question about interstellar travel. Right? So,
I'll try my best.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I'm asking you. I'm pretty sure when you go through interstellar travel, time changes. Time works differently.
Yes.
So how does the astrophage reach? I mean, how does the predator cells reach Earth on time? Because there should be a time gap, right?
Yeah.
So how does that happen? How has there been no change in time?
Oh, how does the Taumiba, like the beetles that they sent?
Yeah, I mean, like the probes, for example,
Yeah.
right? It's going interstellar. So how does it get back to Earth on time?
I think it would have taken about 8 years from Earth's perspective. Because there's one thing is that the probes weren't manned. They didn't have any human beings on them, so they could accelerate a much faster. So they didn't have to worry about like the G-forces of a human being getting liquefied because it accelerated too fast and
Sounds
then
good.
got
Sounds
squished
about
by
right.
gravity or pseudo-gravity. So that would have made them arrive quicker, but they do still. I think the closer to the speed of light they get, the less amount of time they experience relative to Earth. And there's a reason for this. I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's the closer to the speed of light you get when you travel, the less time you experience. That's essentially the long and the short of it.
Okay.
And so, when Ryland Grace traveled to the solar system, they were moving, pretty close to the speed of light. So they experienced about 4 years of interstellar travel, like on the ship. But from Earth's perspective, it would have taken them, like, I think 12 years to reach the Tau Ceti system.
Interesting.
And then, 12 years to get back from their perspective. So when he gets back, if he were to go back to Earth, like 50 years would have passed.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to his, like, not as long, which is pretty weird. So it is kind of like time travel.
Things to think about when you're making a movie.
It's really weird, and I can't really explain it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. You did a way better job than I ever could.
And I may be wrong, but I'm pretty, like, that's kind of like the really simplified baseline. But yeah, it's really cool. It's really interesting. In the book, there's a scientific explanation for everything. There's always a reason for something. In a lot of sci-fi, there can be some pretty huge leaps in logic to get to where you are. But in Andy Weir's stories, they're usually more like hops and skips.
Okay.
Just like little things, just like this could probably be possible. Is there an organism out there in the universe that can convert energy into mass directly? Not that we know of. That would be pretty crazy and also make for a very convenient fuel source. Yeah. Is there a material out there that's made of xenon somehow, which is a noble gas, that's like super strong and a solid? Not that we know of. Pretty convenient, but he did provide the chemical composition for it. It's really more the astrophage that's explained more in the biology. I think the xenonite is just like they just have that. We don't really know how it works.
As a filmmaker, it really amazes me the way you can take actual physics and actual scientific logic and incorporate it into a fictional story, into these fictional characters and fictional elements, which logically, when we watch the movie or watch the show, we know it's not real. But there's so much science it's backed by so much science and so much research that it seems real, right?
Yeah.
It's the depth in fictional characters. It's the depth in...
It makes you feel like something that could happen to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I watched the movie, I knew that they would have to leave out a lot of the science. That happened in The Martian as well. They left out a lot of the science, but it's in favor of the story. It's in favor of focusing on the characters and their journey as opposed to, exactly the different stages and how they got there. And it's sad that a lot of the science was left out, but we still have the book for that.
Yeah,
and
but again,
we got so much more of the characters and the visuals and, the little back and forth banter. And I think that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Yeah. And also, as viewers of a movie, right, when we go into a theater to have that experience, we do give thoughts to the science that goes into it, but I'm pretty sure if they went to the levels of depth that the book went to, I don't think it would have made a visually interesting film.
Yeah,
right?
The average layperson isn't going to care that Astrophage has mitochondria.
Yeah, exactly. Like they did, the fact that they took all of this information and they took the interesting bits out of it and they turned it into a film, right? Which is again why, if you really love the story for the film, you got to read the book that inspired the film, because there's so much more in the book that's missed out in the movie.
Yeah, it's not like the story has changed or anything. It's just the movie, but more.
Yeah, it's because the movie is it's targeted to a wider range of people, right? A kid can watch this movie, and an old dude can watch this movie. The thing is, when you're making movies like that, but it's just curated to the entire world, basically, we can't get way too scientific in it. Because it's gonna feel off-putting. It's gonna feel like a science lesson.
Yeah. For a beautiful story like this, the message was more important, and they absolutely succeeded.
Oh, yes, they did. Some lines in this film were beautiful.
Beautiful. And it's something, like you said, that everyone can watch. It's PG-13. I don't really know why it's PG-13. Maybe because there are some scary moments in it, or maybe Rocky drops the F-bomb and it's just not translated.
There is a jump scare, though. I got jump scared at one part of the film. It's in the very start when Rocky meets, when
he puts the...
When Rocky just shows up to the craft and...
they had to.
It's scary. And also the way Rocky eats is pretty scary as well.
It's so funny. Actually,
it's scary. It horrified me.
In Eridian society, eating is seen as very gross and very you can't do it in polite company. It's seen as very ugh. But Grace is like, I wanna watch, and so Rocky's like, oh, fine. But in the movie, he's like, the way I eat is beautiful, and just like, Rocky, you're so weird. That's...
I mean, it is beautiful in a way, but yeah, I'm happy I wasn't eating when the scene came. But yeah.
Yeah. Also,
and also they
timing,
watch each other sleep.
That's beautiful.
They watch each other sleep because when they sleep, they go into a dormant state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Eridians are completely paralyzed when they sleep, and they can't wake up until they're ready. And so it became... There's so many different cultural things that I didn't get to touch on. Why they think the same speed. Gravity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does gravity...
Grace is like, why do you think we think the same speed, right? Because Eridians, they can do math much faster in their heads or that kind of thing, but their gradual sense of time scale is still very similar. And so Rocky is like, well, maybe it's because of gravity. Because even though our planet's like my planet, its gravity is almost like double yours. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, in the universe, it's not that big of a deal because it's essentially you need to be able to think as fast as prey moves. Or predators move, right? So the speed you can move determined by gravity. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I just can't stop talking about science.
And I
Project
can't
Hail
stop talking about why you should go to an IMAX and watch this movie, especially a 70mm one. Go to the one in Square One.
Absolutely. Even outside of the scientific perspective, Project Hail Mary is an amazing movie full of people who put a lot of heart and soul into the story, into the characters, into the production. It's a movie that was designed to make you want to go back to theaters.
It is very beautifully made. It's very visually stunning, and it has a lot of emotion to it. I've never been more emotionally connected to a rock in my life.
Absolutely.
Right? The last rock I was connected to was Lord Pom.
I know, right? Like, oh yeah, you're now going to be emotionally
Which is basically
attached.
this giant rock. It's this granite rock that I use to put on a table to focus pull. I mean,
Yeah.
to lock focus before I actually bring my products.
We love rocks here.
We love
on
rocks,
the Smacking
basically.
Down Some Learning live show. Now, also, additionally, the sound design, amazing, very skillfully done.
Beautiful
the
sound design.
soundtrack is by Daniel Pemberton, the same man who did the soundtrack for the Spider-Verse films.
Good to know.
Yes, a lot of very skilled people worked on this movie. A lot of care was put into the science. Andy Weir wrote a amazing book, which I highly recommend that you read if you want more after you watch the movie. Because it really goes a lot more in depth into the science. I've spoiled a lot of it here, but it's still a really fun time to read. He explains things in a very concise, interesting, relevant way that makes, even the most uninformed layperson able to understand these very sometimes complicated scientific topics. And even though I don't know anything about relativity, even I was kind of able to very rudimentarily explain it in the context of the film. We've got physics, we've got centrifuges, we've got speculative xenobiology.
And most importantly, we've got cinema.
We've got
cinema. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a movie that you are not going to want to miss in the theaters. Go to the movies. Support your theaters, right?
Support artists and filmmakers.
Yeah,
and beautiful stories.
Yeah, support the movies. And thank you for having me, Devon.
Thank you so much for coming. Go watch Project Hail Mary. Go read the book if you haven't already. We highly recommend doing both. Once again, thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad that I could get someone on this show who loves the story as much as I did. Yeah!
I wasn't as scientific as you, but when I was sitting there in that movie theater, all I was thinking about is, damn, it looks so cool. Cinema,
Yes!
man.
The movie is for the characters and the book is for the science. And they both overlap, and it's really good. It's really
It's
good.
beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it.
I will never shut up about this movie.
Yeah! Let's
Yeah.
go.
This is why I always go over my time limits.
That was awesome. Thank you for having me, Devon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Smacking Down Some Learning here with Tanishq. We are so grateful that you've listened, and we hope that you've learned a little bit more science than you knew before. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and don't get struck by lightning, because I think more thunderstorms are coming soon.